I'll begin by just saying I'm Chris Mason, a senior scholar now at the Center for Educational Improvement and a longtime yoga instructor. I have taught yoga for, 23 years now. And it's my passion. And it's such a joy to be able to share this with teachers, with schools, with school leaders, with all of you. With me today is Kahlil Kuykendall, who's also a yoga and mindfulness instructor. And Kahlil, do you want to say a couple things about yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I am signing in live from Briggs Cheney Middle School, and I'm really, really excited to be here. In addition to working with Montgomery County Public Schools, I'm also an adjunct professor at George Washington University, where I teach a course in stress management. I'm really excited to be here with you today. Thank you.
So I want to start too by saying we've had a couple technologically related glitches, I believe, today. So what we're going to do is we're going to record this session and then everyone will get the recording afterwards. So please bear with us a little bit. I think the tech issues were more on the distribution end of things and that the rest of this should go pretty smoothly. Anyway, next slide, please. And we'd like to know a little bit about you. So if you can put this in the chat, you can just put the number. Are you a teacher or a yoga teacher? Do you have experience with Kundalini, meditation, mindfulness, or yoga in schools? And you could just go ahead and note all that apply. And I believe that chat function is working. Is that right? I'm just double checking here. Ali, can you double check the chat? Okay, so
I
good.
just sent a message. Okay.
Okay, good. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. 4 and 5. Okay. And the way this is going to go, 45 minutes goes very, very quickly. So the plan is to spend 45 minutes basically with Kahlil and I mainly directing and guiding activities. Of course, at any time, if you have any questions, please go ahead and write them in the chat box. Hallie, thank you for being with us today. Hallie is a research assistant with the Center for Educational Improvement. And she's also training to be a yoga instructor. Is that right, Hallie? Is that what I heard? Yeah, which is wonderful. So anyway, she will let us know if you have questions. But then at the end, we'll have 5 minutes for questions. And then Kahlil and I will stay for an extra 10 or 15 minutes if you really have more in-depth questions where you want to just dialogue a little bit about what's going on. We're going to try to give you a lot of practical advice. And of course, as usual, please mute yourself except when you're talking. And please just be aware of others and considerate of them as we go through this, which of course you will. We know that. I hope you've had a chance to buy the book and have read through the first 42 pages. That would be great. What we're going to do today is give you a taste of the book. And there will be some talking, but some action as well, some activities, so that hopefully you can take this back and practice. And practice is really important. It's a very critical part of what we do. In fact, Kahlil and I were both instructed to make sure that we practice because you can't really do much with yoga or mindfulness or meditation by just reading about it. It just doesn't work that way. You have to experience it. So we hope you'll be able to find some time to practice. And then the next session we have next month, we will go with the middle part of the book, and the third session will go with the last part of the book. So we will begin with tuning in, which is something that we usually do for a class. So Kahlil, do you want to share with us?
Sure. I am going to tune in today the exact same way that I tune in with my students here at the school. Typically, I will have my students, we're either during class times or we do lunchtime, yoga, meditation, wellness sessions, and or after school. So with any of those, I would have you, if you're seated in a chair, if you just sit up, just nice and tall. If you're seated on a yoga mat, maybe cross your legs and just take a moment and breathe. And we're just going to listen to the sound of the bell. And I want you to count how many times you hear the bell chime. And here we go. Relax. One last time, inhale deeply. Exhale completely. And let's open our eyes and maybe stretch our arms. Shake out any wigglies. And I think we're ready. We're ready.
Okay. Good. So next time I will help you tune in. I will use some of the things that are recommended in the book. So you'll see there are different ways of doing this. Okay. So now that we've done that, what we want to do is make sure that everyone is kind of centered and kind of ready just to focus on breath and being and just letting go of anything else. Here's an activity that's presented fairly early in the book. It's in the section on consciousness. And what it is a way of just centering a bit. And what you're going to do is spread your fingers apart, keep them wide, and eyes are focused straight ahead. And it's just a rapid movement. And as you do this, you might find that the breath starts to go with it. So as your hands go up, you're breathing in. As the hands go down, you're breathing out. I hope you're practicing with us. Keep going. You could do this for 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to go a little over a minute. Good. Inhale, you can put your hands in Jnana Mudra, which is the thumb and index finger together. Then rest your wrists on your lap. And you can do this from your desk, from your seat, or on the floor. Take some long, deep breaths. And as you breathe, breathe deep into the belly. So on the inhale, the belly expands. Sustain the breath. And on the exhale, bring the navel point to the spine. And then hold the breath out. So we're really slowing the breath down. And open your eyes. And there's so much more I can say about all of this. As you are doing this movement, you may also be polishing your aura. If you're used to those types of terms, this is kind of the space around you, and you're just claiming it as your space. You may find that you start to smile some. It's one of these movements that kind of triggers a smile. The endorphins get going. So if you're in kind of a negative headspace at all, this is a good thing to do. And remember, you can do it 1, 2, or 3 minutes and get some good results. Okay, next slide. Here's our book in case you haven't seen it. So we want to make sure that we're bringing calmness and that you're thinking about being alert as well. And I want to just honor my co-authors. So Jeff Donald, who works a lot with Kahlil in Montgomery County, Maryland, was the second author on this. Krishna Kaur, who we're going to show you her picture a little later today, is almost like the grandmother of Kundalini Yoga. And we'll talk a little bit about Kundalini and Krishna's role, but we are just so honored that she wrote this book with us. Michelle Rivers Murphy is my co-author. I've worked with her on 2 or 3 books related to mindfulness and well-being. And then Valerie Brown is just a rock star too. She is a mindfulness leadership coach, and she has a new book out. Kahlil, do you remember the name of it? I got it. I'll bring it to you next time. It's a great book. Okay, next slide. So Kahlil, do you want to talk about one of the reasons we think this is so important right now?
Sure. One of the things that I have been working with Montgomery County Public Schools now since 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. And in my 4 years working with the county, as well as most of my work is here in Montgomery County, but I also work with DC Public Schools, what we've seen is this mental health, a mental health catastrophic situation. And you've probably, if you are an educator, you've noticed that in the 4 years we're seeing more mindfulness, we're seeing more emphasis on our mental health. And we see a lot in the classroom that students are having a really, really hard time focusing. They're having a hard time self-regulating. They're having a really hard time sometimes even socializing. And so being able to bring and balance wellness, yoga, be it yoga, mindfulness, movement, and with the academics, with the education, and not only the students, but also the teachers, the educators, and the administrators. But how stress has impacted our students, it's just been incredible. But I think the positive part of this is that we now get to import tools like Cultivating Happiness, utilizing our breath, whether it's breathing. Most of our classes here at Briggs Cheney, we start with breathing. We're also doing movement. That movement could be yoga. We had one teacher that did a whole lesson around tree pose. And we had an opportunity to talk about balance, an opportunity to talk about focus, an opportunity to use your breath, because how do you stay focused? Using our breath. And so what I have noticed is just a lot of creativity. We have a lot of brilliant minds here in the county and just in this area. And so I have just really, really enjoyed sharing tools like stress management, mindfulness, yoga, and meditation.
Okay, next. Okay, so one of the things that people always ask us does this really make a difference? You know, we're spending the time doing this, but is there any research supporting yoga, mindfulness, meditation in schools? And yes, there is a lot of research, more and more each year. And the neuroscientific evidence supporting yoga and movement and meditation is very, very strong. The type of yoga in particular that Kahlil and I are certified to do is called Kundalini. And I'll say right off the bat, all yoga is good. I mean, there's just wonderful things that can be achieved. But there is a bit of research that says that some of the things we do with Kundalini, and some of it, as you will see, involves some rhythmic motion. It seems to impact the brain in a slightly different way so that some of the advantages are realized more quickly. And this is one of the reasons that Kahlil and I are so passionate about getting this information to you. We want to make sure that as schools get into this mindfulness vein, that they have a chance to understand a little about Kundalini, and they can then compare the options knowing that. But look at that, improve concentration and memory, respect, self-regulation, Kahlil just talked about that, self-confidence, just the feeling good, right? Emotional balance and physical fitness. All of that comes from the things we're talking about today. Next. Okay, the other thing that's kind of unique about our presentation is that we're taking a heart-centered approach. Now, some of you, I know Emily, I know your name, I've seen you on several of our webinars. Some of you know something about this. The 5 C's is something we came up with actually in about 2014, so about a decade ago. And this is after I'd been in India and I wanted to bring some of the tools from India back to the US, but I realized that the US in 2014 wasn't ready for the yoga in schools. But I thought, they can get the philosophy. And so what we really believe is that mindfulness, or just being aware of one's emotions, being aware without judgment of self, of others, what's going on, is so critical. Because if you don't have that awareness, it's really hard to really do what we can to support and uplift others or to nurture ourselves. And sometimes, would you believe this, if in fact something is distasteful, you've had a bad experience, you may want to just shove it down inside you. You don't want to deal with it. I get it. And sometimes that's a good survival technique. But usually those things that we shove down inside of us pop back up later. And at some point, you got to deal with them. So if there's a way to accept yourself, to accept what's going on through this conscious awareness, you might be ahead of the game a little. So look at those steps. We say that there's several steps for mindfulness. It's really an involved process. But then once you're aware, then you can be more compassionate. And we know that kids who've experienced a lot of trauma or stress may have trouble with compassion because they've got these barriers. They think it's a weakness, and they've learned to show strength sometimes. So what we've got to do is give them some experience with compassion in a nurturing environment, a compassionate community, so that they can feel it and internalize it and be more comfortable with compassion. We think it's one of these really critical skills. As we do this, we can build confidence. And some of you may know I started as a special ed teacher, and I thought about what we need to do to get kids who have some learning disabilities so that they can feel better about their learning themselves, to give them a better sense of confidence and success. And we know some of this is through practice, just like we practice yoga. You practice things so that you start to say, yes, I can do this. With that confidence, then comes the courage. If you think about a student being bullied and you want to be the one supporting that student, sometimes you'll be the one who has to stand out, stand up. And it does take some courage. But if you feel more confident about yourself, it's easier to have the courage. And today we need more courage. So all of these things come together to form a compassionate community and compassionate action. I'll show you this. A book we just wrote came today, and it is Little Learners, Big Hearts. It's on equity and empathy in classrooms. And I can now say I've written 5 or 6 books in recent years. All have had a focus on the 5 C's. And every single book we've talked about the 5 C's. And we're writing a book right now on transformative leadership and getting into that again. So we think if you can focus on those 5 things, there's so much we can do to help improve what's going on. Okay, next. Okay, here's one of the 5 C's, consciousness. We're going to do a little experience here, letting go of anger. And before I get you into this position, I want to spend a minute or two talking about breath. I gave you the long, deep breath before. And remember with that, you're expanding your abs. We're going to practice that every time we meet, because a lot of times we're used to thinking long, deep breath and we breathe into our chest. And look at the difference. Chest breathing, it's just only up to here. If you're really breathing deep into your abs are moving. Let's see. Probably can't with what I've got on, but I will, as I teach, watch to see, are the abs expanding? Another breath that's really important is breath of fire. You'll see this if you started to read the book. And I thought, I wasn't going to teach it today. Then I thought, nope, you need to know it in case you're reading the book. And what we say with this breath, if you're under 13 or 14, the neurological parts of your system may not be well enough formed to spend much time with it. You can spend some, but it's a more complex breath. So realize that. So it's more for adults or older kids. And then if you're a woman and if you're on your cycle or pregnant, it is a very powerful breath. So we say kind of minimize breath of fire during those times too. So knowing that, we are going to start to pant like a dog. Put your hands on your abs. Notice a couple things. One, your abs go in as you exhale. Right? And the other is that it's a deep breath. It gets deep. You can do that same breath through your nose, or you can focus on the exhale. You've got breath of fire. So now we're going to put our thumbs up, and you can see, I'll let you do one with me. Okay. Both arms are up though. Thumbs are up and breath of fire. And arms could be up like 60 degrees. I'm not quite there. Let me see. There we go. That can help you feel more alert. So if in fact it's getting towards the end of the day and you're getting tired, you could put your thumbs up, do breath of fire. Okay. Now the next part, letting go of anger. Okay. So we're going to put our palms to the ceiling now. And you can either do that breath of fire or you could do long, deep breathing. Going to close your eyes. And if you had music at home, you could play it. We'll play music next week. But today we wanted mainly for you just to do this, to have this experience. So you can start breathing. And in the book, we'll say do this 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to just do this for about 40 seconds. Halfway there, keep going. And when we say close your eyes, if you're more comfortable just lowering your gaze, you can do that too. That's fine. Okay, the next part now is bring your arms down. And when I do this with students, if they're not used to having their arms up, you can say, put your elbows by your side, keep your hands up. It's a little easier sometimes. But if you can build that capacity, that's really good. The next part is you're going to inhale and you're going to hold your breath and you're going to punch. So we're getting rid of the anger. So inhale, hold your breath and punch. When you run out of breath, just take another exhale and inhale again, punch. Okay. We'll just do this for about a minute. And again, we could do 2 or 3 minutes pretty easily. When I first learned these, I was doing 20 minutes of the first part, 20 minutes of this. You can imagine what that would be like. Keep going. And I'll tell you, one of the things I tell my students, I do this about every 2 or 3 months, whether I think I need it or not. There are so many things to be angry about. The world, what's happening in the Middle East, the divisiveness in this country, something in our personal lives. And it's just good to get it out. This is a really good strategy. Holding your breath and punching. And now you can go ahead and put your hands back up. And again, you can do breath of fire, or you can just long, deep breathing. And as you do this, you can focus your eyes at the center of the forehead. when you do this, you'll impact the pineal and pituitary glands. These are major glands. When they start to be activated, they'll start to secrete. They impact other glands. So increase the sense of well-being. And as you continue to breathe, now I want you to imagine that right in your abdomen, you have a slip of paper where you've written something you're angry about. And you're just letting go. And if you can do breath of fire now, you can imagine that that piece of paper with the anger on it is just being burnt up, and smoke is coming out through your fingertips and out to the edge of the universe and being dissipated, dissolving. So letting go of anger. And exhale, you can lower your hands. Okay, and you can see it's on page 148 in your book if you want to practice that. This is a good thing to do as you start to teach your classes, because a lot of times people have this pent-up anger, and that may kind of interfere with the calmness and sense of well-being. So it's kind of nice just to let go. Next slide. Kahlil. We're going to have to speed it up a little too, if you notice.
Oh, sure. There's a lot of politics around yoga right now, sometimes in schools, but yoga can be taught as a secular practice, which is what we do here at the school. We like to say that yoga is your own greatness affirmed. And we want the children to sort of understand that it doesn't matter what your faith or your belief system is. Yoga is like any other thing that we practice, Tai Chi, karate, anything that requires our focus and our discipline. And it also helps to with our children, to help them with their inner peace and their balance. And so yoga, and that's what we do here. It's a part of our physical education class, where they're learning how to move their body. They're also learning the physiology of the body, how the body works. So I'll leave it there, just in in the interest of time. But what we're seeing more and more, that yoga can be taught as a secular practice, which is what we're doing here in the middle school. And if you have any children, or if you know about what's going on around the county, most of our high schools are actually offering yoga as a course that students can sign up for. I know that one of our feeder schools, we're at Briggs Cheney Middle School, our feeder school, Paint Branch High School. I just had a student to call me up, and she was like, I love my yoga class. And so I'm really, really excited, because these are some students that wouldn't try it before because they thought it interfered with their religious or their faith, and it does not. So thank you, Chris, for allowing me to share that.
Sure. Okay, and we'll skip over this. It's in the book, but again, look at the way yoga, there's a lot of evidence, a lot of proof. That's okay. We can go to the next slide too. That just says research supports this practice in so many ways. Okay. Next. Lil.
All right. So I just want you to think about this quote by Krishna Kaur, who Dr. Mason just spoke about. So when you are calm, quiet, and sensitive, then you expand. When you are irritated, phobic, fearful, insensitive, and neurotic, you can't achieve anything. So let's really think about that when working with children or just as educators. We want to have a tool that we can access quickly, that will help us to reach our calm, that will help us to quiet from the inside out, that is sensitive to who we are, either as adults or children. Because again, when we neglect ourselves and we're not taking care of ourselves, I think Dr. Mason mentioned it earlier, there's a buildup. which can cause us to be irritated, phobic, very fearful, and obviously insensitive. And that's, I would say, self-care, self-love, and it starts with the self first. So next slide, please. So what do students need to be successful? If you ask any parent, what does your child need to be successful? They're going to say, majority, I would say, a good education. That's why they're going to school. One of the things that we've noticed is that just emphasis on education, as we're looking at education reform, and as teachers, as therapists, as parents, what we're learning is that there has to be this integration, and we have to not only focus on the outside or the external, but we also have to look at the emotional well-being of our students. And I think that's why we're here today. How do we cultivate happiness? How do we create that balance? And so we think that when these two goals are connected and integrated, we are going to see better outcomes in our academic settings. And so what we found here in Montgomery County is that mindfulness is a very useful component of the prevention of students not being able to emotionally regulate themselves. Next slide, please. Why mindfulness in schools? If we are interested in helping children to learn to focus, to maintain their motivation, if we're interested in having a tool that helps with frustrations within the classrooms, because we just did that anger. Sometimes our children don't know why they're angry. So many things are happening at such a fast pace. They can't identify. So that's that kid that's hitting someone, or that kid that needs to run down the hall screaming. So all of these things are reasons that we have found that we need mindfulness to help to manage our children's emotions. And you see here this diagram, it's about attention. It's about teaching our students the benefits of being in the present moment, being intentional and being open. So for us here in Montgomery County, and I could say even in the schools that I work in the District of Columbia, and with my college students at George Washington University, mindfulness is a very crucial tool to achieve positive outcomes. Last slide, please. Was that the last one? So I just want to say, for Montgomery County Public Schools, we utilize this definition for mindfulness, and mindfulness is a science. I heard Dr. Mason talk earlier about the science of yoga and the science of this work that we're doing, but mindfulness is a science of self-development and awareness through the alignment of the body, the breath, and the mind. It's a science of personal union. And really think about that. It's really a science. Last October, I was really fortunate to attend the International Association of Yoga Therapists. It was in Kripalu. I don't know if you've heard of that place, but it's beautiful. It's in the Berkshires, Lenox, Massachusetts. But I went there to meet brilliant minds from all over the world. And in particular, I had an opportunity to meet and to talk with Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who is the founder, or he's noted. He gets a lot of credit for really bringing this idea of mindfulness, and he's been working on this since the 70s. So mindfulness, really, really what we have found looking at the research and also what we're doing here inside the classroom, but it really teaches us how to steady the mind and the emotions while really awakening our awareness of our intuitiveness and peaceful qualities of the heart. And I would also say, just thinking of Dr. Mason and what she just mentioned about the 5 C's, they're very, very, very important. And more importantly, these are really compatible. When you think about mindfulness, all of the tools are really compatible with various cultural traditions, because maybe it's not called mindfulness, but we're all kind of doing it. And so again, let's just really think about mindfulness being that tool that provides inner peace and purpose, as we are cultivating happiness in our students and our parents and our communities. Thank you.
At the beginning of the book, we talk about some hints for what to do as you try to implement these in schools. And I just want to point out 4 or 3 of them. Number 4, challenge but do not injure yourself. Kahlil and I were both taught in a way that said, hey, you don't want to make it too easy because you want to advance with this practice. So you challenge yourself a little. And so that means if my arms are up and I really start to hurt at minute 3, I may not leave them up there for 10 minutes. I may lower them because I don't want to get a shoulder injury. Same thing with your students. So kind of push yourself, advance, but don't injure yourself. We also know it helps. Kahlil, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say, and with the students, we do it in increments. And so we may start with 30 seconds. We're going to hold our arms up. The next week, we might go for a minute. The next week, we might go for a minute and a half. And so even, just like adults, you get to see incrementally how you're succeeding and also mastering and understanding your body. And we feel like that gives us all more empowerment to move forward. Sorry, Dr. Mason.
That's okay. No. And then it helps to have a teacher. So Kahlil and I are here. We're here teachers. You may have a teacher in your community. The book can be your teacher. And there are many online apps and courses, and it does help to learn from someone who's experienced it and knows it. And then have fun. We would just say, hey, this is serious work. It really is. Kahlil and I take it very seriously. It's something we do almost every day. I begin my day, early in the morning after I brush my teeth. I'm in my yoga room almost every day. And usually for a half hour, 40 minutes. But on those days I can't quite do it. I maybe 6 minutes, but I'm practicing. But I enjoy it. And it's like, wow, what am I doing? As I teach, I find I fall in love with the sets all over again. I mean, at one point I think, oh my God, this is one of the best sets I've ever done. And then next week I'll teach something else and it's like, oh, I like this one. And just recognize that.
And I was going to say that I noticed that when you teach, you learn, and when you learn, you teach. And it's very hard for me to teach the art and the technology of Kundalini if I myself am not doing it, because I will know, oh my God, like at a minute and a half, you're going to feel it in your shoulders and you're going to, so you go through the process yourself and it helps me be a better teacher. And I notice when I'm not practicing, I'm not, when I'm not practicing, I'm more acting, and that can happen as well. But you get so much more out of it for yourself and for your students if you yourself are practicing. And just a little bit a day, don't I think that's the first one, challenge, but do not injure yourself. It's really, really important. But taking it slow, but also challenging yourself to move forward, maybe just a little bit further than you did the day before. And I think that definitely brings us into cultivating happiness, from the inside out.
Thank you. Next. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. I'm going to give you a minute and a half version of this set, okay? Which in the book we shortened it to about a 9-minute version. So we start, and this is to overcome one's sense of limitations. And you're going to rotate your hands, but as you rotate your hands, thumbs go in and hands go into fists. So just back and forth. And for this, you can look at the tip of your nose. And I'll just say these eye movements are important. You can look at the book, it'll explain something about it. But looking at the tip of the nose brings you into the present moment. Okay. The other thing I'll say about this movement is notice what happens to the thumb. And in Kundalini yoga, we have this thing where we associate the thumb with the ego. Okay. So the thumb is separate and then it's covered. And let's go to the next part. Oh, I know we're supposed to be doing a panting breath too. See, I'm trying to do this through an O mouth. Inhale, squeeze and tense, and exhale. And again, I'm shortening this. In the next part, you're going to push and do the old breath, panting breath at the same time. And this is removing obstacles, pushing them out from your being. The obstacles are being removed. And last part is your hands kind of cupped and you're making small circles backwards. We do something else in another time, which is like throwing water over your shoulders. This is very similar. Okay. And it's an O breath again. You can close your eyes if you like to, or leave them open. But again, it's kind of getting rid of the obstacles, letting go. Then inhale, arms over the head and shake. Inhaling up, exhaling down. I just shortened the ending too. And you'll notice how I taught it. You can do this too. I started teaching you part of it. I didn't do the breaths at the same time. So that sometimes is a really good way to teach. Get people into the movement and then put the breath with it, then put the eyes with it. All that. And just check for a moment. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling energy, right? Yeah. Okay, next slide. And what I'm going to do is say, hey, we'll get to some of this next week. It's okay. Keep going. We'll get to this part. And these are some of the things that could be happening as we look at the 5 C's. There are things related to courage, to sense of being, to healing, and a sense of community. And they're all in your book, and we will cover some of them. I want to see if you have any questions. And so we'll close out and then we'll talk about questions. So just want to say we have newsletters, we have books, and our next reading assignment, we'll send something out, is on pages 43 to 152. These are huge chunks, but you have a whole month. And there's lots of pictures in the book. It's not all text, right? So questions, comments? So Kahlil, do you have any closing thoughts?
One of my favorite, I love, we saw a picture of Krishna Kaur, and she has a program called Yoga for Youth. And I love what she says the acronym for yoga stands for, your own greatness affirmed. And so I like to share that with my students. So whatever image you have or thoughts that you've had about yoga, and not being a part of yoga, because sometimes my kids think that yoga is for someone else, not for them. Inviting them in to be a part of the family. Yoga, your own greatness affirmed. The other thing, my other quote that I love is that since we have a reading assignment for the next couple of weeks, but they say that if you keep up, you will be kept up. And I really, really believe that. And so, try some of the exercises. I see some of the comments from the chat, which are great. So please continue to challenge yourself, to enjoy yourself, and to cultivate happiness. And thank you so much.
And if anyone wants to hang around, we're here. but if not, we will see you hopefully in a month. And if you have any questions in between, feel free to contact either of us and yeah, and do what you can. Do some practice, please. Okay.
Mhm.
So Sarah, this is the first time you've done this with us, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I think
Hallie's
you're
done,
great.
yeah, several sessions.
Yeah, I can tell she's like comfortable with it.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question? I see, Robin, what did you think of the yoga? I see that you've had minimum experience. Did you feel like these exercises were accessible? I don't know if she's someplace where she can.
I said she has a question too.
Oh,
So
sure.
let's answer her question while she thinks about this.
Okay.
The pineal gland, how does it help? Well, what we say, and this is with Kundalini in particular, that in fact, when you focus your intention, your eyes, right on the center of the forehead, you're getting close to that pineal gland, which is right behind it. That gland is a master gland, and it is one that will help regulate your systems. And as if it works well, then the odds are that your thyroid, your other parts of your metabolism will work well. So what we want to try to do is get oxygen to that area. And we do that with focus. So at least that's the way I talk about it. Kahlil, would you say anything else?
I would just like to add that it's, when we think about the brain, we can also think about the central nervous system, as it relates to the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So these exercises really help us to get to that place of rest and digest, as opposed to always being in a state of fight, flight, freeze. And so these are actually tools that we can learn to sort of manipulate the brain and the body, but and not only manipulate, but to calm, so that we are in a place where we are thinking with more clarity, with more creativity, and more conciseness. And so I mean, the brain, the neuroscience of yoga is really, really interesting. And there's a lot of research. But Kundalini, without even going into, you don't have to be a researcher. Kundalini does a lot with the brain and the body. And stimulating. I mean, something as simple as having your eyes closed, focusing at the center of the brow point. They say it stimulates the pituitary gland and really activates our innate ability to be intuitive, so that would be great, just being able to trust. So I hope that that answers your question, Robin.
These are pretty simple answers. We really could go into a lot more detail.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of
And maybe
neuroscience.
next time, we didn't get a chance this time, but the vagus nerve. And I know you wanted to talk about that. That is huge when we talk about the longest nerve in the body, and what role, what we can do to, again, to calm the body, to calm the nervous system, because what is stress? Stress is when our adaptive capacities are compromised. We really can't deal with the speed of change, and we all deal with that. And so exercising and stimulating the vagus nerve, working on the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, with just very simple exercises. You could be in your car, you could be, in the bathroom, you could be in the teacher's lounge. I'm sitting here in the school library, so it's really wherever you are.
It doesn't take a lot of equipment,
No.
So Emily, I see you're still with us. Do you have any questions? And Emily and Robin may not be able to talk where they are, so we do understand.
Well, I enjoyed the first one. We
I
made
did
it.
too. And
Yeah,
it's a little
I
bit of a
wish we had
challenge.
more time. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish we had more time because I think each section is, but I think it's awesome that we're able to reference the book and we can spend time just sort of combing through the book, and the book is just so resourceful. There are lots of gems there, and a lot of brilliant minds help to put it together. So we get to benefit from all of the research and the hard work. So thank you.
And I'll say one of the things we'll cover next time relates to what to do with different ages of students and what to do to keep the students interested, how to get them engaged with you. Because as wonderful as this is, students don't always love it immediately,
Mhm.
which is kind of surprising, right?
Mhm.
But it happens. And there are some tricks, some things you can do to help students feel more comfortable, because part of it has to do with comfort.
Yeah.
Um,
And part of what we do, we just did a training last weekend. We train teachers to teach these tools in the classroom. And so we will talk about that more next time. But yeah, this program, these tools can be adapted to many different ages. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, chair pose is wonderful. Yeah, I've
Mhm.
taught seniors with chair yoga, and that was fun too. Yeah.
Mhm.
But there's a lot. You noticed we didn't get up and move around today. Next time we will. There'll be some standing and different positions. But today was easier just to start with seated yoga. So
And we also do a lot of chair yoga with the students because in the classrooms, we can't always have mats. And so, just things that we can do between 5 to 10 minutes and also to share with them because they are constantly creating, we call it our wellness backpacks, so it's like put it in your wellness backpack, so they are developing those tools. Because this is one of many stops in life, middle school. So we teaching life skills is really, really important.
And this reminds me too of student leaders. I just have to say this. I still remember walking into an elementary school and into a gym this was up in the Berkshire area too in Massachusetts, and thinking, okay, I've got 100 students in front of me. What am I going to do? And I called 3 students up to co-teach. And boy, did we have fun together. I mean, it's they love to do it, and it was easy to do it together. So
Yeah.
I love working with students as leaders. There's just so much that can be done.
I think when Dr. Mason and we met with the principal here, Dr. Sharon Robinson, and she was sharing at our last parent-teacher conference, we had a student who we have a Zendan here. So the student was actually leading the section and talking about the mindfulness course because here at Briggs Cheney, we piloted last year. So this is our second year offering mindfulness as a course to our 7th and 8th graders. The funny part about the story is this kid had not taken the class, but he was he had a room full of parents explaining the benefits of this class and what they do in this class. What we learned is that when you teach children, they then begin to teach one another. And so he had heard about the breathing. He had heard about yoga nidra. He had heard about, the dog therapy. We try a lot of different, he had heard about the mindful walks. But we were the principal was just blown away that a student that had not even taken the course was leading the discussion. And I just thought that was so awesome. And it really spoke to what's going on here in the building.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think we will go ahead and close today's session. So again, do some breathing, spend some time with yourself, right? And I'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.